In this video, we're going to be focusing on what is called mass to mass stoichiometry. Mass to mass stoichiometry is the process of beginning or starting with the mass of one substance and calculating the mass of another substance. During this process, we're going to find out that this process of mass to mass stoichiometry is a culmination of previous calculations that we have already completed. And the first step, step 1, is to write down what's given. The second step is converting or changing from mass into moles. And technically, it's converting from the mass of substance A into the moles of substance A. Thirdly, converting from the moles of A, substance A, into the moles of substance B. And then finally, converting from the moles of substance B into the mass of substance B. The given will be the mass of A. So mass to mass stoichiometry is the process of starting with the mass of one substance and finding out the mass of a different substance. Every single one of these steps we have previously done, but they've all been isolated. We have been given the mass of A and found the mass of A. Or excuse me, the moles of A. We've been given the moles of one substance and find the mass of that same substance. Those were the first calculations that we've done. And then recently we just learned how to go from the moles of A to the moles of B. So in this case, we're going to go through each one of these steps together. And here's what it's going to look like. We're going to start with the mass of A, way over on the left. And if you're taking notes in your notebook, if you were putting this on the front page in a portrait mode, then you may want to flip the page and then allow this to go all the way across sideways. You'll notice my page is set up that way. We're going to start with the mass of A. This is going to be our given, and we know that it's going to be in units of grams. And the first step that we're going to do from the mass of A is we are going to do a conversion. And the conversion we're going to look at is this. We're going to put 1 mole of A over the number of grams of A. This is the number sign. I know it's the same as a hashtag, but in this case it's the number sign. This here is the molar mass. We call this the molar mass, and we know that it comes from the periodic table. We look up on the periodic table to be able to find the values. So we're given the mass of A, we write it down, and then that's our first step. Then that allows us to find the number of moles, because the grams will cross out and that will be the moles of A. Then the next step that we're going to use is a conversion to change from moles of A to moles of B. So this up here is step number 2, and this will be step number 3. We're putting all these individual steps that we previously did together in one grouping. We will have a certain number of moles of A and a certain number of moles of B. And we did these calculations in part 14 and 15 of our videos. This is the mole to mole ratio. Mole to mole ratio, and it comes from the balanced equation. We find this information in the balanced equation. And then our last step will be just like our first step, but the opposite. We will look at the number of grams of B over 1 mole of B. And once again, this is the molar mass that's found from the periodic table. All of that will give us the mass of B. That's what we're trying to find. Given, and then we found the mass of B. And that is going to be in units of grams. And this is our whole process here. This is the 4th step. Each one of these individual ones we've previously done, where we use the mass of A and use the molar mass to find our answer. Or we use this ratio here to go from the moles of A to the moles of B. Or we use this ratio here to go from moles into grams. Now we're putting all 3 steps together in what is called mass, because you're starting with the mass, to mass, because you're ending with a mass to mass stoichiometry. This stoichiometry, that's what this process is. Starting with the mass of one substance and calculating the mass of another substance, which is over here. In the next video, we'll go through the process in an example to be able to start with the mass of one substance and end with the mass of another substance.